Thank you very much. So today I'm going to talk to you about tools to manage your mental health. First, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself in relation to our discussion today. I'm a new assistant professor of practice at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. I started July 1st, and even though I work at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, an interesting fact about myself is I live right here. And so the point of reference is Michigan, and I live right at the Michigan-Ohio state border. I have a graduate certificate in contemporary gerontological practice. My primary area of research is dementia, and more specifically, the social aspects of dementia. So I'm really interested in the social lives of people who have dementia and their caregivers. I have a PhD in health education from the University of Toledo, and I'm a certified health education specialist. I teach classes related to public health and aging, primarily online. So a little bit about myself. When we talk about aging and mental health in public health, we focus on healthy aging, which the World Health Organization defines as the process of developing and maintaining the functional ability that enables well-being in older age. And that's a really important concept because we're not saying perfect health. We're not saying that you have to be absolutely like a 20-year-old. We just want to develop and maintain the functionality that we have so that we can have the best life that we can. And that includes physical well-being and psychological well-being. And so we talk about this mental well-being, which we define as the ability to cope with day-to-day stresses of life, work productively, interact positively with others, and realize our own potential. That definition is really important because it's more than just a lack of mental illness. It's more than just feeling happy. It's about being functional in our day-to-day lives. It's being able to feel good about how we interact with others. And sometimes people say, when I say work productively, how does that fit into older adults? But we all have work in our lives. We may still have jobs, or it may be that we have things in our lives that we do personally, gardening or housework or taking care of family members. And so it's really important that we have that mental well-being and we're able to function in a way that supports that healthy aging. So adults that have high levels of mental well-being can function under adversity and adapt to changes. And certainly in this past year with COVID, that's been a challenge for all of us. But if we have that high level of mental well-being, it's a little bit easier and we can maintain control over tension and anxiety. And when we can do that, then we can actually look more toward positive relationships and way that we can be supportive. So we look less inward and we look more outwardly. And that allows us to develop mutually satisfying relationships, think about others, have reciprocity in our relationships, that give and take, and focus on more positive emotions such as compassion and love over feelings like anger or guilt. It's really important to understand that just like our physical health, mental well-being is a continuum. So if we expect that we're always going to be in the high green, the excelling state of life, we're really setting ourselves up for disappointment, because just like physical health, our mental health kind of moves back and forth depending on the situation. And I'll think about just my past week. I went to Denver for a conference. And so on Sunday when I left, I was probably closer to the yellow. I had to leave my dog for a week. I had to leave my daughter for a week. I had to go through all of that stress of traveling and the flight and the strange town. And so maybe I was more in the unsettled. But then Monday and Tuesday, I was probably closer to the greens because I was with friends that I don't see very often. I was having a good time. I was enjoying myself. So I was more excelling than not. But then Wednesday, I had to give a presentation at a national conference. So I probably went closer to the yellow. So just sort of that example of I kind of went up and down. It's really about trying to find a general equilibrium whenever possible, but not being too hard on ourselves when we go to one extreme or the other. So I'm a scientist, I'm a public health expert. I have to give you a little bit of background. I promise there won't be a lot of numbers. But I want to talk about the prevalence of mental illness in the United States. And it's important to sort of identify what we mean by mental illness or lack of mental health, because that can run the gamut between short-term disability, maybe it's a situational disability, and a true mental illness. And again, that continuum that not everybody experiences mental illness on a permanent basis, but may have a temporary crisis. A good example of this might be going through a loss. And so you might feel depressed for a short period of time and then feel better after a couple of weeks. But over the course of a year, this year that I'm using estimates for is 2019, there were about 51.5 million adults, which is just under 21%, with a mental health issue. Now, of those 51.5 million adults, about 23 million adults, just less than half, sought help or treatment. We defined help or treatment as either inpatient or outpatient treatment or counseling, or prescribing and using a prescription drug. So we see that of that 21% of adults who have a mental health issue, less than half seek help. And 9.5 million adults, or about 8%, experienced a co-occurring substance abuse disorder with mental illness. That's common for self-medicating adults, but there's also a tendency sometimes with more severe mental health problems to have that comorbidity of substance abuse as well. There are gender differences. Generally, it's mental health issues are diagnosed more among females than males. We see 24.5% in 2019 for females, compared to 16.3% for males. Now, there's a question there, because is it really that females are more likely to have a mental health issue, or is it that females are more likely to seek help and be diagnosed with men, which is really what we think is the case. And we noticed that with the help seeking differences, women, about half of women seek help, whereas less than half, not even 40% of males seek help. So this really relates to a lot of different factors. An area of interest to me is elder suicide. And we do find that men complete suicide much more frequently than women. In fact, older adult white males have the highest level of suicide completion, not just in the US, but globally. There are a lot of different reasons for that, but one reason is that men are much less likely to admit help when it comes to mental health issues. And that really points to stigma. It's a lot easier for us to say that we're sick than to say that we have depression, as the cartoon shows. It's a lot easier for us to just go, I'm fine, and pretend when it comes to a mental health issue than it does, say, having a fever or being physically sick. And it's really important that we try to end this stigma among all age groups. I like to refer to mental health more as brain health, because the brain is really part of our body, just like any other part. And when it needs medication, or it needs some sort of a modality to get better, somehow we treat that differently than if we need to have physical therapy for our knee. But the reality is both are illnesses, and both are highly treatable if we seek help. There's actually a connection between our mental health and our physical health, and we can see these effects across the lifespan, all age groups, among all ethnic, racial, cultural groups, and every socioeconomic level. So it really doesn't matter what group we study. We find that there is a relationship between mental health and physical health, and in fact, that comorbidity is the leading cause of premature death globally. So here are some examples of some relationships between mental health and physical health. So individuals with a mental illness are much more likely to have high blood pressure. They're more likely to smoke. And probably as a result of smoking as much as the mental illness, they're more likely to have heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and asthma. So you can see that there's this relationship between mental health and physical health. There's also a financial connection. Mental health issues are the leading cause of disability worldwide, and in the United States, it's associated with $100 billion worth of direct and indirect costs, and that's excluding the cost of research. So it's very costly to us as a society. Now, what I'd like to do is talk about aging and mental health, because there are some factors of aging that can contribute to our mental health, both positively and negatively. First of all, there's the physical changes that come with aging. So we know that our bodies change. There's some obvious changes. We can see that there's a physical change. I'm 53. I get to say I'm 53 because I don't turn 54 till later this month. But I can see these changes coming over in my body, and I certainly don't look or in some ways feel the same way I did when I was 35 or 25. The other changes that come with aging are changes in our eyesight and our senses. We have slower response times. Sometimes it takes us longer to do things, or we have lower levels of stamina. My husband is 59, and definitely it takes him longer to do yard work than it used to. So we see those changes, and sometimes, especially, you think it might be especially with women because of the obvious physical changes that you can see, but it can be especially difficult on men because they see that as a changing in their masculinity. Again, sort of relates to that concept of elder suicide and changes in perception. A lot of times as we age, we experience pain, joint pain and arthritis, might be a little bit more sore than we were when we were younger if we engage in activities. And then there are changing abilities. And one really big change in abilities that can affect mental health is the ability to drive. This is a really big topic in research and in gerontology, is just that ability to be self-sufficient. I live in Michigan. We are very, very not bus friendly or transit friendly. Everybody's expected to have a car. Even in the suburbs, I can't get to the grocery store without a car. So, losing that ability to be self-mobile is very challenging. Many older adults find that even when they're driving, they don't drive at night or in inclement weather. And those abilities can wear on us in a psychological way as well, because we see ourselves as changing and maybe feeling a little bit less independent than we once did. There are emotional changes, and a lot of these are really good. I love this lady. You know what? You just feel like she wants to wear this and she's going to wear it. And that's fantastic. And that's a change that comes with age. We have this sense of emotional stability. We know ourselves better. We know what we like and what we don't like. And that gives us a certain level of freedom that we perhaps don't have when we were younger. We also have greater levels of experience and maturity. And so things just don't bother us maybe as much in many cases. In fact, there's a great social psychologist that I love. Her name is Linda Carstensen. If you're interested in, after I talk about her work, if you're interested in her, I've put a resource in the references at the end of my presentation. But she's done some study with a theory called socio-emotional selectivity theory. It's a really fancy name. What it basically says is as we age, we actually are happier and we have better social and personal relationships because we decide who we want to have relationships with. So when we're younger, in our 20s and 30s, we may make relationships with people we don't even like because we feel like we have to because they can somehow help us in our journey through life, or we need them for their jobs or something else. But when we get older, we say, we only want to be friends with people that make us feel good about ourselves. And so those high drama friendships and relationships tend to go by the wayside. And so that's an emotional and a experiential change that can be really positive for our mental health. And again, just some of the freedoms from social constraints. If we want to wear something, we wear it. And we don't care if it's in style or not. If I want to wear my hair this way, I wear it. I stopped coloring my hair recently. And I don't know, sometimes it passes as blonde and sometimes it doesn't. But you know what? I don't care because I'm happy with it. So again, just a positive change that can really influence our mental well-being in a good way. Now, we also can experience cognitive changes. And as a dementia researcher, I really want to emphasize that dementia is not a normal part of aging, and it's not something that we should just expect is going to happen to us. I teach young students, often undergraduates, about dementia and aging. And a lot of times they mirror whatever their experience is with their grandparents, because that's the most exposure they have to older adults. And so if their grandparents have dementia, a lot of times they'll assume everyone who's over a certain age has dementia. But I want to share this graphic from the Alzheimer's Association. And this is estimated lifetime risk of Alzheimer's. And so again, my younger students assume that everybody who's 85 has dementia. But if we look at the actual numbers, men who are 85 have a 12% chance of developing dementia, and women have a 20% chance. But what that really means is 80% of women 85 and older aren't going to have dementia. And so certainly it's a something that we want to look for, and we want to continue to try to find better treatments. But it's not something that we should constantly fear or assume is going to happen to everybody. And so I think that we need to be aware of the fact that it's totally normal to forget somebody's name or forget where we left our keys so once in a while. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a serious problem, and we shouldn't feel this worry hanging over us all the time. Other other changes that can affect our mental health are social changes. And we all experience these throughout our lives, but perhaps in later life, we experience them a little bit closer together. And they can include loss, divorce, children growing up. I have a 20-year-old and she's half out of the house, half in the house. And sometimes it's liberating and sometimes it's really sad. So that can certainly change how I feel about my life. Friendship dynamics can change. Again, going back to that idea from Linda Carstensen of, we decide what friendships we want and that are productive. Loss of work, again, it can be very difficult for men and women, but is especially associated with depression with older men because they see this major part of their lives is gone. And what research shows is that women have a little bit easier time in general, transitioning from no longer working to whatever their new role is outside of the workspace, and that sometimes it can be a little more difficult for men. And of course, isolation sometimes happens with older adults. 1 in 5 older adults experience social isolation. So if you know someone that is experiencing that, you can certainly make a change in their lives just by talking to them, dropping them a line. I have a woman down the road, I secretly send her letters. She has no idea who's sending these letters, but I send her, she doesn't talk to us, but I send her letters anyways and just say, I hope you're having a good day. So these are certainly areas that can affect how we feel about ourselves and our mental well-being. There's another part of this that socially I really wanted to talk about, and that's social expectations about aging. Because if you watch commercials or television or look at print ads, society sort of depicts growing old as one of two things. Either it's absolutely miserable and you're going to be lonely and you're going to be sad and you're going to have memory loss and you're going to be sick, or it's this awesome expectation that you're going to go and do everything. You're going to go and you're going to, even if you never used to hike or bike, you're going to go out and bike and hike, and you're going to skydive, you're going to do everything. And so there's this, from a mental health standpoint, either one of these generalizations can be unrealistic and they can affect your mental health. So the reality is it's probably neither one of these, because what we know is that growing old really is just a continuation of life. So I wake up this morning and I'm 53 years old and I might say, oh, I'm 53. But you know what? Today isn't really all that different than when I was 35. And I kind of expect that when I'm 74, that's probably what it'll be as well. Or I hope that's what happens. So we know as we grow older that old age is neither completely free of stressors or an unbearable burden of unhappiness. And that's wonderful because it means we can just live our lives. And I said, be careful of unrealistic expectations, but I also want to point out that perhaps this is the best time in all of human history to grow old because we have choices. And I could not use this picture because the sky is not the limit. If William Shatner at the age of 90 can go to space, we can do what we want to do too. And so we find older adults these days are taking on what we call second careers. So they're going out and reinventing themselves. I'm done with my regular career. I want to try something new, just to try something new. And that's fantastic. It can be liberating. And what it means is that if we are experiencing a certain level of stagnation or depression, that we can go and reinvent ourselves to some extent. I have a great picture that I've used in my classes before of a woman who turned 100 years old and she graduated from college. And she did it just because she wanted to. She started college when she was young and never got to finish. And that's fantastic. We can set goals, whether they're William Shatner going into space, or it's that we want to walk a 5K, or we want to try something new. And we have that ability to do that today, much more so even than 50 years ago or 60 years ago, where it was you retire, you go home, you watch TV, and then you die. We can go through the gamut of experiences after retirement. And that's a fantastic prospect for us in this day and age. I'm not looking forward to growing old per se, I'm happy at 53, but I'm not afraid of it either, because I know that I don't have to face that sort of stagnation as I grow older. So now what I want to do is I want to talk to you about some things that you can do to help maintain your mental well-being and stay as positive as possible. So I'm going to give you the big 7. And these are the 7 things that you can do to help maintain optimal psychological well-being and feeling good about yourself. So the first one is social connection, and social connection is whatever you define it as being. So if you find great satisfaction in going to church or temple, that's a fantastic way to maintain social connection. That's great. You can do it through family members, through friendships. We learned this past almost 2 years, you can do it remotely even, so you don't have to be in front of somebody to have a connection. But just keeping that connection and feeling like you're still part of society is very important. And there are many opportunities to do that through your Office on Aging, through senior centers, through your church, through your family, but definitely try to find a way to stay socially connected. Stay active. And this, again, just like the social connectedness, really depends on your interests and your personal abilities where you are right now. Not everybody can run a 5K. I can't run a 5K. I have bad knees, but I can certainly walk every day, and I do walk every day. My husband and I get up and we walk every morning for an hour. And there is a lot of research out there that says that the benefits of walking are equally as good as running, because you're out there and you're moving, and whether you walk a mile or you run a mile, you're still out there and you're moving and you're getting your heart rate up. You don't need fancy equipment. You could certainly join a Y, or you can go to, I know you have a youth center that you can use. But again, even just getting out and walking your dog or moving around is a positive thing, and will help you mentally and physically. Staying active is a really positive thing as well, because as you age, there's more risk of falls. Slip, trips, and falls are a very serious thing in aging. And so the more mobile you are, the better your gait is, the better your balance is, the less likely you are to fall. So just another plug for staying active for your own well-being. The third one is managing stress. And this can be a challenge for all of us, is learning how to handle stress and not letting it overtake our lives. For older adults, some common stressors are caregiving responsibilities. Like this, again, is an area that I research, is caregiving. I've researched adolescents who are dementia caregivers, and that's really interesting. And they are far less stressful than older adults when it comes to dementia caregiving. But that's a big responsibility, and it can be very stressful. Financial issues, physical changes, as we discussed, and changing social and family roles can all cause stresses in our lives. So we need to learn how to recognize stress, first of all. And so these are the big signs of stress: headaches and back pain, indigestion, heart palpitations, poor concentration, indecisiveness, crying, irritability, and edginess. Now, you can recognize most likely stress in yourself, but the big reason why I wanted to give you this list is you may be a caregiver of someone else who can't express their feelings of stress. And I'll go back to my particular area of concentration, and that's dementia. Someone who has moderate to severe dementia is not going to walk up to you and say, "I'm feeling really stressed today." But what they may do is feel irritable or edgy. You might notice that. You might notice that they're wandering or behaving a little bit differently. These in dementia can be signs of stress. My mother-in-law had dementia. She passed away 2 years ago. And I could always tell when it was time for her to go home because she would start feeling stressed. She would ask the same questions over and over again, and she would get just a little irritable with us. And we could tell that she needed to go home because she was feeling stressed. So if you're a caregiver of someone who cannot express stress, these are some symptoms to look for. How do we handle stress? Well, there are a couple of really great ways. We'll go back to that physical activity. If you can get up and move around, that can really help you just sort of alleviate the stress. Taking a walk is a fantastic way to just work through things in your mind and get some physical activity, and the endorphins go up and it helps quite a bit with stress. Finding a hobby. I read an article just the other day, a study that said that hobbies are fantastic with stress because they help divert your attention away from the problem for a little while and give your whole system just a chance to breathe. So whether you like to fish or sew, or my husband apparently has taken up Legos recently. So we're doing these ginormous Christmas Legos with like 1,500 pieces. But if you're feeling stressed and you sit down and you do Legos for half an hour, it's fantastic. So just getting that something to get you away from it. Animal companionship, if you like animals, is a fantastic way to release stress. Just petting an animal, being around an animal can lower your heart rate and lower all of the bad feelings and release good hormones and make you feel better. So I don't know if you've noticed, but my companion is sitting right behind me here. He's sleeping. He won't leave my side because I just got back from Denver and he's afraid I'll disappear again. But just having my dog in the room, even if he's snoring next to me, just helps calm me. So animal companionship can be a great way to relieve stress. And meditation. And a lot of times people think meditation means that you have to have some sort of a guru type knowledge of how to meditate, but even just sitting quietly in your own thoughts, calming thoughts in prayer can be very good for lowering your blood pressure and feeling better. And what I'd like to do right now is give you a stress relieving activity. So Angela and I are going to do this together. We're going to do a progressive muscle relaxation routine. And so Angela, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through this. Okay. So okay. I'll do your counting for you. Okay. So you're going to sit in your chair, which you're doing now with your hands in your lap. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to squeeze your toes and squeeze them, and then relax them. And now you're going to tense up your legs and you're going to hold them really, really tense, really tense, and then let them go. And then we're going to tense up our arms. So we're going to tense them out really tense, hold them as tight as you can, and then relax them. And now we're going to do a breathing relaxation. We're going to breathe in, and then when I tell you, you're going to breathe out really hard. So breathe in. And now breathe out really hard. And now this one's going to be weird. You're going to scrunch up your face and you're going to hold all those muscles really tight and then relax them. And then the last one, you're going to tense up your shoulders and then you're just going to relax them. So this is a progressive muscle relaxation routine, and you can do it over and over again for a few minutes. And when you're done, what you should find is that all the tension that you might hold in your body, you've let go of. Another good one, it's not on the graphic, that you can do is I tend to tense my teeth. And so you can tense up your jaws and then let it go. But just sort of going through that routine causes you a couple things. It does release the tension that you're holding in your body. But the other thing is, for the 5 minutes you may go through this tension, thank you, Angela, that you may be going through this routine, you're not thinking about those problems because you're concentrating on what you're supposed to be doing. And so this can be a very effective method for releasing stress. The next item I want to talk about is preventative care. This is really important. This is good for your physical and your mental well-being. The first one is take care of your teeth. If you're diabetic, there is a direct relationship between the health of your teeth and your overall health, and it goes both ways. So if you don't take care of your teeth, you're less likely to be able to control your glucose levels. And if your teeth are really bad, you're not going to follow a healthy diet. You're not going to get in the healthy food you're supposed to eat because it hurts to eat. And also your glucose level affects the health of your overall oral health. So brush and floss, find a way to get a cleaning. If you don't have dental insurance, Look around your community. Many dental offices offer free clinics. My parents both go to a free clinic for their teeth once a month. There are free cleanings for older adults. So now that's not in the Knoxville area, but many communities have that. So whatever you need to do, take care of your mouth. It's really, really important. Make sure that you get your regular screenings. I know it's not fun to get a colonoscopy, but it really is important. And especially since the pandemic, there's been an uptick in colon cancer cases. So get that colonoscopy. Just do it. We all go through it. Just get it done. Women, get your mammograms and your pap smears. If your doctor is no longer asking you about these tests, you ask. Many doctors, they don't ask older women if they need their mammogram. They don't bring up pap smears because they think, well, that's embarrassing. And, an 80-year-old woman doesn't want a pap smear. Get your pap smear. It really is important. My mother-in-law had dementia, but she actually died of ovarian cancer. She hadn't had a pap smear in years. I hear stories of women who don't have mammograms after the age of 65. Please get your mammograms. Men, get your prostate exam. Make sure that you go through these regular screenings just as you did when you were younger. It's important. Care for your sight and your hearing. This is the window in of the world. And so you need to make sure that you can see and hear as well as possible. And I just read this morning that if the new bill passes, we're going to have hearing in Medicare. So that's fantastic. But make sure that you take care of your sight and your hearing. Again, wear your glasses, don't be proud. And if you see that you have a problem, go see your doctor right away, because there are many conditions with your sight that can be treated very easily if you catch them early. Please get good walking shoes. This helps with physical activity, because if your shoes don't hurt, you're more likely to walk, but it also makes sure that you don't trip or fall. And so have some good shoes, and don't be too proud. You don't have to wear high heels. Wear the good, comfortable shoes that are going to make sure that you're safe. And use supportive devices in your home. My husband works for a nonprofit organization that takes care of people with disabilities. And many people don't want to put the lifts by their toilets, or they don't want to use a cane, or they have rugs on the floor that they don't want to lift. But make sure that your home is as safe as possible, and use supportive devices if necessary to maintain your physical well-being, because honestly, breaking your leg and sitting in a chair for 6 weeks will not be good for your mental health either. So these are just some things that will help you both physically and mentally. Follow a healthy diet. The Alzheimer's Association recommends 2 particular diets: the DASH diet, which was designed for people with high blood pressure, and the Mediterranean diet. Both of these diets emphasize much fewer servings of meat and sweets during the week. I know, sweets, we all love them, but eating fewer of that and eating a lot more of cereals and beans and nuts and seeds and fruits and vegetables. That's a much healthier diet, and it's been shown to help with psychological well-being and also a reduction in risks for Alzheimer's disease. The great thing about these 2 diets is that they're very well published. So you can go to the library and get a book on either one of these diets. You can look online, and there are recipes all over the place for the DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet. And they're very similar, so you can mix and match. But try to eat healthy. Eating a lot of sugar really isn't good for you physically, and it's also not good for you psychologically, because you get that sugar high and then you come back down, and that's not good for your mental health. Really, really important is sleep hygiene. As we age, we need fewer hours of sleep, but we need good sleep. We need to be able to count on a good routine sleep habit. And so here are some good habits for sleeping well at night. Avoid blue lights 30 minutes before bedtime. So, don't look at this just before you go to bed. Don't look at your phone. Try not to watch television. Turn off all your electronics and get away from that blue light, because it brings up your cortisol levels and makes it more difficult to calm down and go to sleep. Lower the thermostat just a little bit and follow a regular schedule. My husband and I, even on the weekends, we sleep in, which means we sleep in till 6:30 or 7, but we never sleep past 7 o'clock. So get up at a regular schedule, go to bed at a regular schedule. Lower your alcohol and caffeine intake at night. And finally, get as much fresh air and exercise as possible, especially in the cooler nights. If you go out and take a little walk around the block before bedtime, that's a great way to kind of tire yourself out and help yourself get to sleep a little bit more easily. And Angela, we're going to do one more technique here. This one's a breathing technique. It's called the 4-7-8. I originally had a slide here. It was the Tootsie Pop owl. Because you say, how many licks does it take to get to the center? How many times do you have to do this breathing technique? I don't know, because after 4, I'm asleep. So I use this. I literally used this one last night. I flew in yesterday. I was exhausted and yet not tired. I couldn't get to sleep. And I always tell myself this isn't going to work. And then I do it 4 times and I'm asleep. So this is a tried and true exercise that I'm going to talk you through. And I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to talk you through breathing in for 4, and you're going to hold it for 7, and then you're going to exhale for 8 seconds. Okay. And we're going to do this 3 times, and then you're not going to fall asleep on me because we're only going to do it 3 times. But so ready?
I think my boss will appreciate that.
So here we're going to go. We're inhales for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm sorry. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I messed up at the end, but you get the idea.
I got it. I would like to go to sleep now.
Now the holding is always the difficult for me because it feels like 7 is a long time, but then when you exhale, you're pushing everything out. So a couple of things. You're putting all that air into your lungs and you're pushing it back out, which is fantastic. But you know what you're also doing? Think about counting sheep. You're just concentrating on the up and the hold and the down. You know what you're not thinking about? The dog threw up on your carpet earlier today, right? So you're letting all that stuff go and you're focusing on just this breathing. And it really does work. Again, I use it all the time. And I always tell myself, this isn't going to work. I'm too awake. I'm not going to go to sleep. It works every single time. So, and it's easy to remember, 4, 7, 8, you've got it.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So our next item, you're welcome. Our next item is meaning and purpose. And like many of the things that I've talked about here, it's a personal thing. So what we do to find meaning and purpose in our life is an individualized thing. It might be spending time with your family. It may be donating time to other people. There's this concept in social research called generativity. And what it means is giving back to younger generations. And it can really be very meaningful for older adults, because if you look back and say, I've had my career, I've gone through school, I've done all these things, how can I then give back and give meaning to the generations coming up? And so you might volunteer, you might take care of your grandchildren or your neighbor's children. For some people, going back and finding another job might be the way to do it. Some people really like to work, and like everything else, we should allow people to do what they like to do and what brings them joy. So whatever that is that allows you to find meaning and purpose, go out and find it, and that will help you maintain your mental well-being and equilibrium in life. So those are my 7 items. What I wanted to do was give you some resources. This is not a comprehensive resource. As I explained to Angela before we started, I did look in the Knoxville area and found resources that also said that they were currently not available due to COVID. So I'm going to stay in the general, and I know that Angela can interject with some local resources that either I didn't find or that she may know are available now. But I'm going to start at the national level with SAMHSA. SAMHSA is a sub-department of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. I provided you with a website for them, specifically for older adults. SAMHSA is fantastic because it provides mental health and substance abuse resources, including research information, facts and figures, and national programs. This is really important because mental health is an important issue with older adults, but so is substance abuse. We could spend an entire time just talking about the dangers of sharing prescriptions and just how that can cause serious health problems and substance abuse issues. So SAMHSA is great at the higher level if you're looking for information. More local, the Mental Health Association of East Tennessee is funded by United Way, and they provide free mental health screenings and additional preventative and care services. Their website is on the screen and in my references as well. The next one is NAMI. NAMI is a national program with local chapters. You actually have a chapter in Knoxville, and they provide mental health resources. They also have a very strong advocacy for mental health and substance abuse legislation and programs. They often do walks, they do fundraisers, they support all kinds of programs in your community. And equally as important, they have support groups for family members and professionals. So if you are an individual who supports someone with a mental health or a substance abuse issue, they have great support groups for you as well. And their website is here on the screen.
We also, with Knox Seniors, I just want to throw in here, we have the senior service directory that we publish every 2 years, and you can access that online at knoxseniors.org. But there's a section called mental health services, and we include Contact Care Line. It's a crisis care line, and there's also the National Suicide Prevention Line. The McNabb Center has a stabilization unit and a mobile crisis unit. And then, of course, like Dr. Perion said, the Mental Health Association of East Tennessee. And so there are also some mental health treatment and counseling options in here. So we invite you to definitely peruse our website, knoxseniors.org, and find the yellow senior service directory button, because there's a wealth of information in here.
Very helpful. Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. The last resource that I had, and I just noticed I have citation 12 at the bottom of my slide. So, no one's perfect. I actually just went to the city of Knoxville and found some resources there as well. So I put that URL, the website, on the slide as well, because it listed several mental health associations and resources for finding psychotherapists and support groups. So those were my resources. Now, I want to make sure that I say this. If you are in need of immediate help, please call your doctor or 911 for emergency services. You can also go to the nearest hospital emergency room. If you feel that you or someone you love is at risk, you can also call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It's a toll-free number. It's on the screen here, and you can be connected to a trained counselor 24 hours, 7 days a week. So again, if you feel that you are in need of help, please don't feel afraid to ask for help. We need to end the stigma of mental health issues. It's just like anything else. You would not necessarily be afraid to ask your doctor for help if you're diabetic. You should not be afraid to ask for help if you are in distress. There's research that shows that men who commit suicide, the last contact they have was with their family doctor, not with a mental health professional. So your family doctor may not know to ask you if you need assistance. Be aggressive and ask for that help. And on the other side, if someone you know or love says that they're struggling, it's very easy to go, oh, you're fine. Oh, just take a walk. Oh, you have a great life. If someone says to you that they're in crisis and they need assistance, please listen to them and do what you can to help them. As the family member of a person who committed suicide, it can be difficult and it's not something you want to face. But you can be the person that makes the difference. And so please be open to listening to people if they're asking for assistance. And finally, I've provided for you, and I know I sent Angela a list of my references, but at the end of my PowerPoint, I do have a list of references for you. And what I'd like to do is provide you with my contact information at the University of Tennessee and open myself up for any questions that you might have.